Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today, all about unlocking your learning power.
That's right.
We know that being new to learning and schooling can be overwhelming,
Absolutely.
but it's also an exciting time to discover how you learn best.
Yeah. It's like finding the instruction manual for your own brain.
It really is like figuring out how your brain ticks.
Yeah.
So have you ever noticed how some people just learn better by watching,
Yeah.
you know?
Uh-huh.
Well, others, they have to listen to something.
Right.
And some people, they even need to move around to really grasp a concept.
Yeah, those are all clues to your learning style.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today.
Exactly.
It's not one size fits all.
Not at all.
We're going to explore different learning styles and give you some actionable strategies
Yes,
to use this knowledge in your own studying and note-taking.
absolutely. And we'll start with the familiar VARK model,
Okay.
visual, auditory, read, write, and kinesthetic.
Okay, perfect.
It's a great foundation.
All right, so let's jump right in with visual learners. What are some telltale signs that someone might be a visual learner?
Well, think about those friends who are always doodling
Oh, yeah.
or color coding their notes or, drawn to pictures and diagrams.
They're processing information through what they see.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
So if I'm a visual learner, highlighting key points in a textbook
Yes.
or creating mind maps might be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mind maps especially are fantastic for visual learners.
Why is that?
Well, because they let you see the connections between ideas.
Ah,
It creates a visual map of the information.
that makes sense. Okay, so what about auditory learners?
Okay, so auditory learners,
How do they prefer to take in information?
they are all about sound.
Okay.
They might find it easier to remember what they hear in a
Wow.
lecture or in a conversation.
Right.
They often enjoy discussing ideas out loud.
Oh, so like talking through a problem.
Exactly, or listening to recordings.
Okay, so if you find yourself humming along to a study guide
Yeah.
or talking yourself through a problem, you might be an auditory learner.
You got it.
Okay.
And for auditory learners, recording lectures can be super effective.
To listen back to,
Yeah, or even explaining concepts out loud to yourself.
I can see how that would help.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have read-write learners.
Yes,
Are those the folks that always have a pen in hand?
exactly. They love the written word,
Okay.
making detailed notes, writing summaries, creating flashcards.
So that's totally their jam.
That's their strength. Yeah.
Got it. So for them, rewriting definitions in their own words
Yes.
or summarizing a chapter could be really beneficial.
Precisely. They're processing information through the act of writing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, we have our kinesthetic learners.
Yes, our movers and shakers.
They got to move.
Exactly. Kinesthetic learners learn best by doing, by
Yeah.
physically interacting with the world.
So how does that translate into learning?
Well, they might find it helpful to use manipulatives to build models or even act things out
Oh.
to understand the concepts.
So if you're someone who learns a new dance, move quickly,
Yes,
or enjoys building things with your hands, you might be a kinesthetic learner.
absolutely.
Okay.
And for kinesthetic learners, incorporating movement into their study routine could be key.
So what does that look like?
Think about using flashcards you can physically manipulate,
Uh-huh.
taking breaks to stretch or walk around, or even finding ways to act out the concepts you're learning.
Wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
This is all so fascinating.
Yeah.
But here's a question.
Okay.
What if I relate to bits and pieces of all the different styles?
Right.
Do I have to just choose one?
Not at all.
Okay.
That's where the idea of multimodal learning comes in.
Multimodal.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
Many people use a blend of styles.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, they draw on different strengths depending on the situation.
So I could be a visual learner, but also benefit from listening to recordings.
Exactly.
Or a kinesthetic learner who also loves taking notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it's really about understanding your dominant style,
Yeah.
but also recognizing that you can be flexible
Yeah.
and adapt.
Adapt.
That's such a relief.
Yeah.
I was starting to feel like I had to fit myself into a box.
Right?
But wait, there's more, right?
There is more.
There are even more learning styles beyond VARC.
You're right. VARK is a great starting point.
Yeah.
But it doesn't cover everything.
Okay.
Let's broaden our horizons a bit
Turn around.
and explore a few more learning styles
Awesome. Let's do it.
that you might resonate with.
Tell us more.
Welcome back to our deep dive into learning styles.
All right. So we've explored a whole bunch of learning styles
We have.
from visual and auditory
Mhm.
to kinesthetic and even naturalistic.
Exactly.
But now let's talk about how understanding these styles can actually help us learn better?
Yeah, let's connect it to some practical study tips.
Because what's the point of all this knowledge if we don't use it?
Right, and that's what we're going to delve into in this part of our deep dive.
Okay, let's do it.
We're going to talk about note-taking strategies
Note-taking, yes.
that are tailored to how you learn best.
Because good notes, they're like a learner's secret weapon.
They are.
They can help you make sense of information,
Right.
remember it better,
Absolutely.
and even see those connections that you might have missed otherwise.
Right.
But sometimes, note-taking can feel like drinking from a fire hose.
It can.
There's just so much information coming at you. It's hard to know what to capture.
Yeah, and that's where knowing your learning style can really be a game changer.
Totally, because it's all about making your notes work for you,
Exactly.
not against you.
Exactly.
So let's start with our visual learners.
Okay.
If I'm someone who thrives on seeing information,
Yes.
how can I make my notes work for me?
Visual learners think about turning your notes into a visual feast.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, ditch those boring lines of text.
I'm guilty of that.
And embrace things like mind maps, diagrams, color coding. For example, if you're studying the human body, imagine drawing a colorful diagram of the different systems
Oh, wow.
and labeling each part.
So you're not just writing down words.
No, you're creating a visual representation that your brain can easily grasp.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift gears to our auditory learners.
Right.
If you're someone who learns best through sound, how can you create notes that speak to you literally?
Literally.
Tell me more.
Auditory learners try incorporating recordings.
Oh, like recordings of lectures?
Yes, or even your own study sessions.
Okay, so you can listen back to them later.
Exactly.
Okay, and what else? Another great strategy is to summarize key points out loud,
Out loud.
as if you're teaching someone else.
Like you're the teacher.
Exactly.
They like that.
This helps you process the information through sound and solidify your understanding.
So it's like turning your notes into a mini podcast just for you.
It is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about our read-write learners? Okay, so for read-write learners,
They love working with words.
yes,
Note-taking might already be a strength.
it might be. But
Yeah.
here's how to level up your game.
Oh, okay, tell me more.
Instead of just copying down information word for word, try summarizing key points in your own words.
Got it.
You can create outlines, bullet points, or even write little mini essays to synthesize the information.
Okay.
Think of it as translating the material into your own language.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So it's not just about writing.
It's not just about writing.
It's about really engaging with the text and making it your own.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's move on to our kinesthetic learners.
All right. The ones who learn best by doing,
They gotta move.
they gotta move.
Right.
Yeah, if you're a kinesthetic learner,
Yeah.
traditional note-taking might feel a bit too static.
A little boring.
Yes. So how can you inject some action into your notes?
Okay, this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah. Kinesthetic learners, your notes should be anything but boring.
Okay, so give me some examples.
Think about using flashcards you can physically manipulate,
Okay.
creating interactive diagrams, or even using building blocks to represent concepts.
Building dogs, that's a new one.
Yeah. For example, if you're studying history, you could create a timeline using different colored blocks to represent different events
Wow.
or periods.
So it's about turning your notes into something you can touch and move and interact with.
Exactly. It's about making learning a hands-on experience.
I love it. This is all so helpful. But what about those other learning styles we talked about? Beyond VARK, like logical, social, solitary, and naturalistic learners,
Right.
how can they tailor their note-taking to their unique strengths?
Great question. Let's delve into some note-taking strategies for those styles as well.
Okay, so we talk about tailoring note-taking for those visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and read-write learners.
We did.
But what about logical learners?
Right.
Those who love structure and systems.
How can they make notes that work for them?
Exactly.
Well, logical learners are all about seeing the big picture and understanding the why behind things.
The why.
Yeah, so they might find it helpful to create outlines or flowcharts
I see.
that show how different concepts relate to each other. They could also use a system of symbols or abbreviations
Okay.
to organize their notes and make them more concise.
So it's like they're creating a blueprint
A blueprint. Yes.
for the information,
Yeah.
breaking down these complex ideas
Yes.
into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Exactly.
Now, for our social learners
Okay.
who thrive on collaboration and discussion,
Yeah, note-taking doesn't have to be a solo activity for
They
them.
could totally rock study groups.
Yes, study groups would be perfect.
Bouncing ideas off each other, comparing notes.
Exactly. Social learners can really benefit from discussing the material with others
Makes
and
sense.
hearing different perspectives.
Uh-huh.
They might also find it helpful to create shared documents or online platforms where they can collaborate on note-taking in real time.
Oh, wow. So it's like turning note-taking into a team sport. Yeah. I like that. Okay, what about solitary learners
Solitary learner.
who prefer to work independently
Right. Are there note-taking strategies for them?
to enhance their learning?
Definitely.
Okay.
So solitary learners might find it helpful to write reflective summaries of the material in their own words,
Okay.
really digging deep into the concepts that resonate with them.
Deep dive.
Yes, they could also use their notes as a springboard
Okay.
for further research
I'd like that.
or exploration on topics that particularly interest them.
It's all about creating a personal connection
Yes, a personal connection.
with the information,
Yes,
going beyond just the facts and figures.
absolutely.
And finally, we have our naturalistic learners.
Our nature lovers.
Yes, who connect with the world around them.
Yes. How can they bring that element into their note-taking?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they could study outdoors,
Outdoors, yeah.
like in a natural setting,
If possible, find a quiet spot in a park or garden.
to review their notes.
Exactly. Or they might also find it helpful to incorporate nature-related examples or metaphors into their notes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
They could even use sketches or diagrams of natural objects to represent concepts,
wow.
tapping into that connection with the natural world.
It's like they're weaving nature into their learning.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It
We've
has.
explored all these different learning styles
Yeah.
and discovered how to make our notes work for us,
Yeah.
not against us.
Not against us.
And I think that's the key takeaway here.
It is.
There's no one right way to learn.
Exactly.
It's all about finding what works best for you,
For you.
your own personal learning rhythm.
Your own rhythm.
Embrace your strengths.
Yes.
And create that toolkit of strategies
Yes.
that help you learn best.
Exactly. The journey of learning is ongoing.
It is.
And the more you understand about how you learn,
Uh-huh.
the more empowered you'll become as a learner.
So true.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up this deep dive?
Don't be afraid to break the mold.
Break them all.
There's no right or wrong way to learn as long as you're actively engaged
I love that.
and you're finding what works for you.
Yes.
Learning should be a joyful process of discovery.
Absolutely. And remember, this is just the beginning.
The beginning.
The real learning happens when you take this knowledge and apply it to your own studies.
That's right.
Pay attention to what helps you understand and remember information.
Uh-huh.
And don't be afraid to adjust your strategies as needed.
Exactly.
And maybe even share your discoveries with others.
Yes, learning is more fun and effective when we do it together.
Absolutely. So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep learning. We'll see you on our next deep dive.